Inner Light, where we illuminate the path from pain to purpose. Today's guest, John Taylor McEntire, brings a story as courageous as it is inspiring. From a childhood marked by trauma to a global career in leadership consulting, John's journey is a testament to how spiritual healing can unlock powerful, authentic leadership. Through his sync method, he shows us that the greatest leaders lead from within, and the inner light that guides them often emerges from the darkest moments. Welcome to the show, John. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be with you.
Mhm. So, John, you have said your trauma became the foundation of your leadership. How did spiritual healing first begin for you?
Well, it began in a number of different ways, but most recently, I had finished working for others for 35 years, so working for universities, national laboratories, and different foreign governments, and that was fine in regards to um, be, from my childhood trauma. I've learned over the years that that made me a people pleaser and a perfectionist. And it made it so that when climbing up the ladder was actually fairly easy, because if I knew what my bosses needed or my boss's boss needed, um, keeping them happy and on keeping things on track, and uh, making sure that everything's going away that they were wanting it to, and maybe being quiet about things that I may be concerned about for myself. So that allowed me to climb up the ladder, and I had success from that. And what I realized was that the last climbing of the ladder was when I started my company, Mutual Prosperity, back in October of 2022. And this was, had been coming for a while, but when all of a sudden I didn't have a boss that seemed to be on track. I didn't know what my boss wanted, and I didn't know if my boss knew what he wanted, and that made things very confusing for me. So of course my boss was me, and it helped me realize that something was amiss. And I I'm an avid fan of working with coaches and mentors, and I've had many of them throughout my life and my career. And one coach that I was working with on putting standard operating procedures together for an entrepreneurial effort, putting a pitch together, and I was having a difficult time actually putting this pitch together. I'd written the pitch myself, but I wasn't memorizing it, and this was like really strange to me, because when I was a child, I had been in theater, so acting and everything, and really active for 10 years. And so, you know, script reading, script memorization was part of my DNA, at least I thought it was. And it just made it, for whatever reason, it was difficult. So one night I had a dream, and the dream took me back to all my childhood traumas, back to 2.5, to 5, to 6, to 9, to 10, to 11, 12, you name it. It just kind of, I had this dream, and it just took me back through this my life. And I was telling somebody about this the other day, and they said, "Oh, what a scary dream." And I said, "No, it was actually enlightening, because it helped me understand myself better and helped me understand where things were at." So basically working with this trauma and working through and understanding that that was what was holding me back helped me uh, decipher things that I needed to look at. So it helped me get, with that coach. He said, "Well, some of your trauma is uh, pretty traumatic," and he goes, I can't help you with that. You need to see a therapist." So I started seeing a therapist, and then from that therapist, had different opportunities to have some breakthroughs, and have really stymied that trauma. It's been put away. It's understood and have been it's been reconciled, and so that's where things are at right now.
That's amazing. And what was the turning point when your inner work began transforming your outer leadership?
So again, there's a difference between when you're working for others, and I of course was in leadership positions then, and I see now that although I did well and I communicated with my staff and everything, I think that underlining my leadership persona was the fact that although I maybe not have understood it or known it, I wasn't being totally honest. I wasn't being completely authentic, and that that realization now is really strong because now I talk very freely about my life and my good things and my bad things. And part of my trauma was that because I was in theater from age 9 to 19 and had lots of activities in stage, uh, minor parts in television and little movies, educational movies. I did some vocal recordings and some dramatic recordings, and it was a very interesting, fun life and everything. But my father had told me, and this is one of my trauma things, was that that why do you have to have the spotlight on you all the time? You need to let others have the spotlight sometimes. And this was going back to my siblings and those around me, and so I was put in this place where somehow I needed to, you know, I can have fun with what I'm doing, but I can't share that. And this is coming from somebody who not only had that theater background, but I had also had an opportunity to travel to 19 countries and 50 states by the age of 22. And so I felt like I couldn't even talk about that. So when you think about leadership, some of those things, both the good, bad, and the ugly, need to be shared with those around you to be totally authentic. And vulnerability is really a crucial key in keeping people tied in together. And so, and that's part of my sync method. And sync is is synchronize, Y is yourself, N is naturally, and C is with your community. And the components of yourself is really how to personalize the um, the leadership and make sure that you're being vulnerable, being authentic, and those types of activities.
Yeah, and that shift from survival to service is powerful. It reminds us that healing doesn't just help us, it helps us lead.
Absolutely. And service is really something that I think what you've pulled out there is really key. When I think about the places that I've worked around the world, and I've worked with a lot of people from India and a lot of people from the Philippines, and there's really an attitude of service in those communities, and I've been really feeling like um, not everybody in the world is treated the same way when they're in a work environment. And when I was in Doha, Qatar, we had there was a pecking order, and the pecking order was uh, the Qatari royal family, the Qatari nationals, and then it came like the Americans and the British and the Germans and maybe the Japanese, and then down the row, came others. And I always thought that hierarchy was really strange because somebody may be doing the same job, but they're getting paid differently or being treated differently, and that just didn't really gel well with me. And but the fact of the matter is, when I had these associates from India, from the Philippines, from other places that were really putting in their best effort and really having a cheerful attitude in regards to, working and really doing a good job. That was to me, um, based on them having a servant leadership type persona, and wanting to make sure that they added value to the whole.
Definitely. And you created the sync method, synchronize yourself naturally within your community. Can you
Yes.
explain how this model works?
So early on in my right after high school, I went to university for a semester, and then I took a break, and I was a missionary in Japan for my church for 2 years. And when I went to Japan, I learned that even though Tokyo has what 35 million people and was one of the largest cities in the world at the time, uh, it it was really astounding to me that they could, really live, and there's this phrase, that the Japanese live in like rabbit hutches, because their apartments are stacked on top of each other and across. And so they live in these really small places, really tight, and they get along very, very well. And it comes from the fact that consensus is a very big part of the Japanese lifestyle and Japanese persona, the Japanese culture. Everything is really made off of that idea of having consensus and being synchronized together. And so that was the impetus for sync, because when you're syncing, you're connecting all the players. You're bringing people together in regards to mission and vision and purpose. And the Japanese did that very well. And so that the synchronized part is, how do you get people speaking the same language, which is breaking the curse of Babel. Curse of Babel is when you have an organization, many people are speaking the language of their department. So finance speaks in numbers and profitability. Uh, Marketing speaks in terms of you know numbers of views on a on a LinkedIn site, or on a social media post, or what's going on with their advertising. You have people who are in engineering and they speak technical talk, and then people who are on a factory floor and they're speaking, how do you put things together and do that job. And so oftentimes the larger the organization, the less connected these groups are, and they're speaking their own languages. And these meetings that they have jointly often go really crazy, because they're not really talking with each other, they're talking at each other. And so you have to have the language needs to be aligned, but also you need to understand the orbs of influence. How do all those players fit together? I think of an organization as a puzzle, and everybody is a piece of that puzzle, and they've all got to fit perfectly to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So that's the synchronized part. How do you get everybody aligned together? The personalized part is, how do you as a leader work on yourself to create something that means more than what it seems on the surface. So that's where the vulnerability and authenticity comes into play. And you're trying. I'm a Jack Canfield certified methodology trainer, and I that's where the personalized part comes from, is the success principles that he has, and I have those interwoven in throughout the sync system, but mostly that's in the yourself part. So how do you become the person who really takes responsibility and can exude the charisma necessary to pull other people along with you? Then the naturalize is, there's a lot of things that we have and we take for granted, or that we don't understand. One of those is intuition, and intuition has been a big part of my whole life, and the jobs that I've had. And so I help people understand how they can use intuition and how they use things from foreign places. So the Koreans are very good at what's called nunchi, and that's how do you read a room, and how do you understand, how you fit in that room. So if it's a boardroom or an event or a family gathering, whatever, how do you perceive people seeing you and such, and other aspects of East meets West. So Eastern philosophies have ancient traditions, and those are things that we shouldn't be um, pushing aside. Those are things that we should be learning from. There's lots of those types of things. And then Western pragmatism gives us this environment of being very highly, uh, very highly um, entrepreneurial and innovative. And so when you put those together, then you're able to have things go more smoothly, and you're able to solve problems. And then the communitize is, how do you make sure that you are building familial bonds almost. You've got, uh, the familial parts of a tribe, but you're taking the silo parts away. So you don't want these silos. Again, having departments think just in terms of department, it makes it very difficult. So the sync method is my 35 years of a toolkit that I've gathered, working in all these different environments, working with people of different generations, which is a big thing right now. And then also, we're a global world, and most places do have people coming from other places with different cultures, different languages, even, and different time zones. And how do you put those all together? Well, the sync method helps people do that.
That's great. And why is inner harmony a non-negotiable starting point for healthy leadership?
Because ultimately, if you're trying to get a team to buy into your mission and your vision, then you've got to have harmony and peace. And this is actually a very interesting that you pulled this out, because one of the things that I really believe is that every society has had something, um, every positive society, I should say, has had something related to peace or harmony, the way that people attune with each other. And like uh, in Arabic, it's Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. And in Israel, it's Shalom, and in Japan, it's Heiwa, it's peace. Um, and all these different cultures have this, and somehow in our modern society, we've forgotten that that we've taken it individualism to such an extent that it really, what matters is really the individual and not so much the collective whole. And we need to get back to understanding that whole, and that's where that peace is really important and harmony is important. So when we harmonize with ourselves and our internal being, and we are able to flush out that trauma, or understand it in a way that, even though I had trauma from my parents, um, uh, there was a time when I was just really mad about, all this trauma and everything that I went with. And basically I came to breakthroughs, and the breakthrough comes about when you realize that, um, well, they were parents and they were my parents, and they didn't have an instruction manual for me or for my siblings, and they did the very best that they could with what they knew at the time. And once you are understanding that, then you can let that go and you can forgive them, and then you can feel forgiven by them, too. And so that's a harmony within yourself. Once you've got clarity there, then you're able to harmonize what you need to with your group that you're leading.
That ripple effect from inner coherence to collective synergy is exactly what the world needs more of.
Absolutely. So what's interesting is that my favorite color is purple. And I've come to terms that in the United States, you've got the divide of the political divide. You got red and blue, And I think that it's just to an extreme where it doesn't really matter, where collectively we recognize that we are on the same page, which I think is more things than not. But we get to the point where our team's color is more important than what reality or what truth is. And so somehow we need to, merge our colors, as people, as groups, and make sure that we're creating a color that accepts everybody and allows everybody to, be what they can. And so I teach leaders about the puzzle again. And when they hire, somebody, um, they usually have a piece of a puzzle which is certain in size and shape and everything. And but when they're trying to find somebody to fill that puzzle piece, most times that somebody that's coming that could do that job actually has a bigger puzzle piece themselves that doesn't really fit in there. So they could do the job, and if they're getting paid well for it, they may take that job even though they don't have any room to grow. But because they don't have room to grow, it's likely that those people will not stay with that job very long. And so the company or the organization is going to be trying to hire somebody else again in a couple of years. And so what I, try to help leaders understand that we've got a person who's coming in with their own puzzle piece with its own shape, they need to provide margin around that so that there's a room to grow. And it's having that room to grow where people dovetail together and are able to really, augment what each other is doing. So this is how my saying inside sync is that we need to help leaders, uh, first of all, be inspired, be empowered, so they can help their teams to thrive. And those leaders need to help their teams be inspired, so they can be empowered, so that the team thrives. And so all these things go together when you've got that bigger puzzle piece to help, um, to allow those people to grow into it. That's where the buy-in comes in. And this is all related to, again, the colors and the culture. You want it to smooth in together, because somebody who comes with a different way of thinking, if they're let free to be able to do their job in their way, they're going to be adding value to it, and adding a new texture and a new way of thinking that is going to help solve problems in a different way. And that's where, again, being in this global world, we need to make sure that we're thinking globally. And you can only think globally if you're letting people, bring in the way that they were brought up, bring in the way they were educated, because East and West, they're educated differently. There's a hierarchical model in the East, and in the West, it's more, egalitarian. And so the way people talk to their um, their teachers is different. The way they talk to the people who are above them, is different. And people need to be able to understand, how to smooth those types of differences together, so that everybody feels like their piece of the puzzle matters, and that they want to, go forward with that. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, it does. And John Taylor McEntire just showed us that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to heal. It's his story resonated with you. Take a moment today to pause, breathe, and ask, am I leading from my light or my wounds? Because the journey to authentic leadership always begins within. Keep shining.